So many people, they mention حقوق الوالدين, which is true. Parents have حقوق. But they don't mention that the parents are three categories. There are parents who have full intellect and no anger. There are parents who either have intellect and are quick to be angry, or have no anger but they do not have full intellect. And there is a third category of parents who have neither intellect or neither do they, and they are quick to be angry. Did you know the huquq diminish from parent category to parent category? Allah. So the last category has minimum huquq. The last category. If they have no intellect and they're quick to be angry, they have minimum huquq. No one mentions this, but they will mention huquq al-walidain, but they do not mention the rights of the children. What is the rights of the children? The right of the child is you teach him Quran from a young age. How many parents teach their children Quran? They send them to the masjid for 2 hours. They never check the Quran at home. Why? Because most of them cannot recite the Quran themselves. Then when the child reaches 16 and becomes rebellious, they expect him to be obedient. The haqq of the child is that you instruct him in how to pray his 5 daily prayers. Do not leave it to the masjid. You send him to the masjid, he is babysitted by the school system for 8 hours a day, and then you expect him 2 hours of madrasa to make him a different person. And then so many parents are so angry at their children, they make them go onto the streets. They say, don't stay in the house, go onto the streets. Why? So that they cannot cope with their child being in the house, because they cannot communicate with their own son. You know how many fathers there are who cannot even communicate with their sons? They cannot even have a partnership with their son. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu said, when your child is from 1 to 7 years old, play with him. You play. From 7 till the age of 14, you are strict with him. But strict here doesn't mean what some people think, shouting at him and beating him up. It doesn't mean that. It's, in fact, in Sharia, it's haram. It's haram to strike children. Now in madrasa, some of these madaris, they think it's permitted to hit children. It's haram. Yes, in the fiqh books, they do mention if your child reaches 10 and he doesn't pray his prayer, the father is permitted to what? Strike him once. What strike is that? That strike is, if he has a book underneath his armpit and he taps the back, not the head or the face, and says, pray your salah, once. But we won't even apply that today. That's what's permitted in a khilafah. That the father, if he placed a book under his armpit and he tapped once and he said, pray your salah on the back. That's what's permitted, not what happens in some of these madaris. They beat up children with sticks, they beat up children with wires, they abuse children. All of that is haram in Sharia. So shouting at your child is not going to teach them and instruct them. Slapping them is not going to teach and instruct them. In fact, the more a person shouts, the less they are obeyed. The children become less obedient. So, from 7 to 14, a father is what? Strict. What does strictness mean? Firstly, he prays salah himself. He cannot say to them, pray your salah, and the son says, Father, all I see is Maghrib time is going through and you're watching television. Yes? Because there are some parents out there who only utilize Islam when the child is disobedient to the point the child's not getting a job and paying a mortgage. So they need Islam now to tame him. So they'll go to the local alim, they'll say, can you tame my child? Meaning give him that much Islam, enough that he'll be obedient to get a job and a mortgage. This is what most parents want. But The reality is, if the parent is not praying salah 5 times a day, the child will not pray salah 5 times a day. If the father is shouting at the mother and swearing at the mother all day, and the mother is shouting at the father, nowadays you have women who beat up their husbands as well, then these parents are not a good role model for the child. Then what you definitely need is that the father, in order to become the head of the household, he needs to demonstrate himself practicing his deen. Then Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu said, from the age of 7 to the age of 21, be a friend. Be a friend with your son. From the age of 14 to 21. And then after the age of 21, you let them go. What happens today? They ignore them up to the age of 21. And then when the father becomes older, he realizes he hasn't raised his son properly. He chases his son down everywhere until he passes away or the son passes away. He ignored him for 21 years. He didn't raise his child properly. Why should he cry afterwards? So Sayyidina